I just recently posted a video on how I got this headliner panel out of this 240D when the roof was stuck closed. Now, it was pretty challenging. I know some of you have asked, well, what about other videos? What about this and that with these sunroofs? Well, I have a number of resources on my website, including additional videos and even manuals I've written on the entire process of how to get the whole sunroof out, get the cable out, lubricate everything, adjust everything, and get that sunroof working again. Now, some of you may have never seen one of my on-demand videos. These are the videos that I sell on my website that are only available for viewing there. So during the month of August, this entire month of August in 2016, I've put all my on-demand videos on sale for half price. And one of those videos is what I did to this panel after I removed it. Because when I removed it, it was pretty grungy looking. It was filthy dirty, and these edges were all peeling and falling off. So I went through the process of what I call restoring this headliner panel. And it is an on-demand video, step by step. One of the things about my on-demand videos versus my YouTube videos is the on-demand videos tend to be much more detailed. In other words, step by step, you know, the old, hey, this is how you do it, every single phase of the whole operation of cleaning and re-gluing this with the proper glue. So now I have a really nice sunroof panel that today I'm going to stick right back in there. Now that the roof opens and closes, by the way, you know, it's a lot easier to get these panels out and to get them back in. But what I want to do is also during the month of August, I'm going to offer that on-demand video free. It's going to follow this introduction, and you'll get to see exactly what one of these on-demand videos look like. If you have a sunroof panel that's all messed up like this one was when it was removed, enjoy watching the rest of this video. If you're doing any service or repair work on your older Mercedes sunroof, you usually have to remove this headliner panel. You know, it snaps out in the front, and you pull it out of the car, and you can complete the work on the sunroof, whether it be lubrication or replacing some parts. But when you go to put this panel back in, it probably will need some work. Of all the panels I've seen, and this is typical of those panels from the early mid-60s right up to the late 1980s, you're going to find that these edges have peeled back. See that? They were glued at the factory, and they're all lifting. You're also going to find out it's dirty and probably has some streak marks in it. So the first thing you want to do is re-glue the vinyl back to these steel bands. If you don't do that and reinstall it like this, you probably end up tearing this panel, and you may even end up jamming the sunroof. I'm just going to go through the procedure how I glue this. There's a certain type of glue you want to use to make sure it holds. The glue I use is even better than the factory glue. Begin by cleaning all the junk out of the rails here. If you have some compressed air, you can use that. You'll be surprised. You'll probably find some needles up in here. Check if the original glue is holding. You can just leave that. If it's a little bit loose, you know, go ahead and pull it back. I'm going to go ahead and pull it off because it's not as strong as I'd like to see. Once you get that cleaned off, I use alcohol to clean the junk off these steel rails. You don't have to worry about getting all the old glue off. You just have to make sure it's clean so that the new glue is going to stick. So I'll go ahead and continue this cleaning operation. We'll get it all cleaned up and dried, then I'll come back and show you how I apply the glue. The glue I use is a heavy-duty, thick contact cement, and the emphasis is on thick, okay? If you use a thin contact cement, it's going to absorb too quickly into the vinyl, and it won't stick. Thin works fine on metal, but it does not work very well on rubber and vinyl because of the absorption rate. So notice how thick this contact cement is. See, it isn't running. So you can find this in quality hardware stores. Some upholstery shops have this, but if you can't find it locally, we do carry this on my website. It's the same glue that we use for installing hood pads, and it works great. The interesting thing about contact cement is you have to let it dry to the point where it's no longer wet, but you can't let it dry too much. So to use this type of contact cement, it's all in how thick you put it on and how long you wait before you touch the two surfaces together. Now when I'm putting it on metal, there's no absorption rate. So I don't need to put it on real thick. I'm going to put on just a nice coverage coat like this. And I'll go all the way around and put this, what I would say is a thin to medium coat on the metal parts. Try not to get it on the vinyl on the inside here. If you have to, you can shove some paper. Let me show you what I mean. This is some heavy cardstock if you just slide it under that rail. And when you apply the glue, you don't have to be so careful. It's going to be kind of your call whether or not you think you have a steady enough hand to get this glue on. These corners can get a little tricky, so I'm going to use the paper in the corner. Now be real careful pulling back on these corners. You can tear the vinyl. Now you need to work fairly quickly because you don't want the glue on the rail to dry. One thing working with this glue, it is kind of obnoxious in the smell, so I usually work outside in a nice stiff breeze. But for the purposes of this video, I'll just hold my breath a little bit. Now I'm going to explain here why I put it on the metal first. Now if you look over on this side, it's starting to dry. So I'm going to try to keep it wet. If there are any places on the steel straps that are starting to dry, I'm going to just dab them and keep them wet. Now I'm going to start applying the glue to the fabric, and here I put it on real thick because it's going to absorb into the fabric. And when it does, it'll dry faster than what you're seeing the dry rate on the steel straps. All right, now I'm going to go back and look everything over. What I want to do is take the brush and wipe away any globs, because the globs are going to delay the drying time on the surfaces. So if I see a glob either on the metal or on the fabric, I'm going to spread it out. Once again, my goal here is to get both surfaces to tack up at the same time, and I'll explain what tacking up means here shortly. But for now, it's glob removal time. Spread those out. Okay, that looks good. Now I'll come over here. Okay, I'm just going to double check, make sure both surfaces are still showing a little bit of wetness. I can even use my finger to spread it out, particularly on the vinyl. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'll get the cap back on. Make sure you use a throwaway brush when doing this because you're never going to get it clean. All right, now let's talk about drying time. I've probably got anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes before this is ready to contact. That's why they call it contact cement. I'm also going to change my gloves because I don't want to come back and have sticky gloves for the final operation. But I'll just keep an eye on this. And the goal is to allow this cement to dry just enough so that when I touch it, it's not wet, but it's still a little bit sticky. You understand? You don't want to wait 1 or 2 hours and come back, or it's dried too much. If you try to contact the two surfaces when it's still wet, it will lift up and you'll lose some of the strength of the adhesion. So when you're doing this, you don't want to leave. You want to kind of stay around and keep an eye on this. I'm going to come back and check it, and we'll check the surfaces of the steel straps. We'll check the surfaces here on the vinyl to make sure they flashed off, and by flash off, I mean they're not shiny any longer. And then I'll go through the process of contacting the two surfaces together. It's been 20 minutes and I'm back and I'm just checking this over. If you look here, you can see this is real dry and it's still just a little tacky. If I push my glove down, I can feel a little bit of tack. Now, if I'm pulling a lot of glue off, notice my glove is clean. It's not pulling any glue off. And this is true on all surfaces. See, now there's a little bit of wetness right on there. That's a good example of why I showed you that the vinyl takes longer to dry. I'll check this one. Okay, this one's ready to go. Now, you want to be careful that you don't pull the fabric too much when you roll it over, because these metal bands are flexible and you don't want to put too much strain on them, but you want to pull it a little tight. I start in the middle and I pull that over and I put it down, and then I'll come up about 2 inches, pull that over and put it down, come up here. See how I'm kind of doing it in a little bit of a stagger. That'll keep this from bunching up. Now I'm going to take my hand, I'm just going to roll that forward and put pressure down so I'm evenly stretching and pushing the fabric onto that steel band. Now this glue is permanent. It's way stronger than the factory glue. All right, I'll come back here and check this. That's still a little wet, so I think I'll just move on over here and do this side. Yeah, this is good. I don't see a little bit of wetness there, but that's all right. Okay, once again, I'm just going to pull lightly on this, and I'll start in the middle. Just tack that down, move down to here, roll it over with my hand, tack that down. See, if you pull on the edge like this, try to push the edge down, you're going to end up with it bunched up. So you want to kind of work from the edge and roll it in. And once you get it rolled and tacked, then you can come back and apply some good pressure here. You want to apply good, strong rubbing pressure to that glue joint. All right. Now, this needs just a little bit more time. Here's something you can do to accelerate that. If you find another glob, just get your rag and come in here and wipe that glob so it will dry a little faster. I can't wait. If I let this dry, then this is going to become too dry on the outer halves of this rail. So I'm going to wipe the excess off, and now I'll take right here, just pull lightly on it, lift it up, pull, and roll it over. Now notice this, see that? When it's wet, it doesn't want to stick as well. So I'll come down in this area. I'm going to pull on it, roll it here. Okay, now it's starting to tack up there on that center section. Okay, I'll come over to the center of this section. You notice I'm not pulling hard on it. I want it to be taut, but I don't want it to be under stress, so you're going to bow these metal straps. Now this area right in here that was wet, I may have to come back in a few minutes and apply some pressure just to make sure. I've got some junk here I've got to clean off. Okay, take and rub it one more time here. It's essential that you wear gloves when you're doing this. Have 2 pair of nitrile gloves handy, one for the initial application and throw it away, and then come back and have a clean pair on hand for this final press down and fit of the 2 surfaces. Okay, let's flip it over and see how it looks. Okay, you can see there's no waves or loose areas in the fabric here, but I do have some staining. So I'll come back in the next scene and I'm going to show you what I used to clean this up with. My cleaner of choice when cleaning this old vinyl is Purple Power. And depending upon the condition of the vinyl, if the vinyl is extremely dried out, I mix the Purple Power with water on a 50-50 ratio. But in this case, I'm going to use Purple Power full strength, and I'm going to use a very soft brush. I find that these paint brushes cut off at an angle like this can provide just enough pressure, but not enough to scratch the vinyl. So I'm just going to do this little section right here and kind of show you how I do this, is just put the Purple Power on and then take your fingers and just lightly rub it into the vinyl. We're going to let it sit a little bit. I'm not going to start scrubbing until this is probably sat for, at least 2 or 3 minutes. Pay attention particularly to this right here, and we've got some yellowing up here. Sometimes you cannot get the yellowing out. It's a permanent stain. Okay, I'm going to let that sit for a couple minutes, and then I'll come back and take the brush to it. Notice I've got cardboard on the back side of this panel. You're going to get junk all over the place, so I recommend you put something down underneath these perforations in the headliner panel when you're cleaning it like this. Okay, next step, I'll just wipe it off with some blue paper shop towels. You can see how much dirt I'm picking up there, but if you look closely here, you can see I'm having a hard time getting those yellowing spots off, so I'll do another application. Paintbrush works real well to get down in these perforations. I'm still not having much success with those yellowing stains. Sometimes those are due to the factory glue on the back side of this, and it deteriorates the vinyl. You can see it's looking a lot better there. And to rinse it off, I'll just use my little garden sprayer here with a little clean water. You definitely want to rinse it when you're done, get the excess Purple Power out of the vinyl. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the panel now, and then I'll come back and show you the protectant I'll use to apply to this vinyl when I'm done cleaning it. After cleaning, I thoroughly rinse this panel and let it dry overnight. I wiped it down as best I could, but you still need to let it dry because you're going to have some water absorption into that vinyl. It looks a lot better, doesn't it? It's not perfect, but when I put this up inside my 240D, it's going to make the rest of the interior look like it needs cleaning, particularly the rest of the headliner. Now, before I put it back in the car, I go ahead and apply the protectant. Now, my protectant of choice for this vinyl is 303. It says right on there, 5-star protectant and cleaner. It's exceeding expectations since 1980. Well, I'm not the only one that thinks this is the best protectant out there. I do not like protectants like Armor All or some of the others that have silicone and petroleum products in them. This is a water-based product. It's pretty amazing stuff. So when you put it on and when it dries, it's going to seal the vinyl, protect it from UV deterioration, protect it from smudging and dirt, but it's not going to be sticky and shiny like so many of those other interior protectants are. And there are two types. We actually carry these on my website because I'm so impressed with them. Is you can spray it on with these little sprayers, but when I'm doing large panels like this one here in the interior, the door panels or headliner panels, I like to use these 303 wipes, and they're pretty amazing. You just take one wipe, and it's pretty wet, and I'm just going to lift it up and really rub it in, and I'll keep rubbing it in until it actually develops a shine on the vinyl. That lets you know you're getting on real thick. You can see it's pretty clean. If it weren't clean, it would be picking up dirt on this wipe. I'm pushing pretty hard because I want to make sure I'm working this into the vinyl. Now, I don't use 303 on leather. It's just vinyl, rubber, and plastics. Okay, there you have it. I'm not going to wipe this down. I'm going to let that 303 just kind of absorb into the vinyl, and probably tomorrow I'll set this back inside the roof of my 240D, and I am finished. So that's the way you can clean up your sunroof headliner panel.